Yes, real quick introduction. For those who don't know me, Scott Newsbaum. I'm one of the founders of Traction. I was many years ago an ag CPA. Worked for a CPA company, Crowe Chisholm Company. Worked for FarmWorks Software from about the start, from 1993 until it was sold to Trimble, and kind of worked with Trimble until kind of FarmWorks shut down, and then connected with Brian and started Traction. So this morning, my focus is going to be on the market value balance sheet, but I'm going to do things a little bit differently. We're actually going to kind of jump around different parts of the program because in addition to showing you how to use the market value balance sheet, I'm going to show you where some of the numbers come from. So market value balance sheet, go to the reports area, go to accounting, and there's a market value section down here for market value balance sheet. So market value balance sheet's a little different in that you kind of build the report from the report. So when you go in here, this will list any of the market value balance sheets that you previously created. I've just created one here, but then you can use the plus new to make new ones. And the big thing, the market value balance sheets, you can make as many of these as you want to. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I'll see a lot of people will do, maybe they make a market value balance sheet for the banker that's an expected situation, but they want to try different what ifs. So they make maybe a best case, a worst case. It's all designed so you can easily do some things like that. So market value balance sheet, you can do it for if you want to combine, if you have multiple entities and you want to do a combined one for all the entities, you can select them all here. If you want to do a separate one for each one, you can do that. In my case, I've got two entities. I'm just going to go ahead and use both of them in the market value balance sheet I create. The date, that can be any date. Typically, that's something you're going to do as of the end of the year. But if you're a banker, maybe you're getting ready to go out and get a loan and the banker wants one as of the time you're getting that loan, that date can be set for whatever it is. So all the value subtraction pulls into this will be from that date. So what Traction's going to do is make a description for this report based off what you've selected. So we're using the date and the names of the entities. Now, if you want to customize that, you can. So if I want to say, okay, this is for my banker, just put banker on there. If I'm going to use different copies of it, that's just kind of a label that I can use for this report. And that copy one, this copy one is where I can actually, this is a scenario if maybe I already built this balance sheet for B&S Farms and I want to make a copy of it and go in and tweak the numbers and try different things. You can use that copy from to copy it in there. So I'm not going to copy anything. I'm just going to start from scratch. And when I click save, Traction's now going to build the report as a starting point. Now, the thing to say, what we're going to do, this report is going to be built the same way if I looked at an accrual balance sheet. These are going to be the same numbers as you would see on the accrual balance sheet. And before I show you how to put in market value numbers, I'm just going to go through these different areas and kind of really quickly show you where they come from. So accounts receivable, and what I'm going to do is just in Chrome, I'm going to go duplicate that tab. So now I've got Traction in two different tabs. I'm just going to show you. So accounts receivable, that shows we've got $62,956.98. Where does that come from in Traction? Well, that comes from the invoices area. So these are all the invoices that I've done that I haven't been paid for. So those are the invoices. Those are the total amounts there. The bank accounts, I mean, those ones are the obvious ones. Those are all coming from my checking account register. As we go through then next, prepaid expenses. So this is a brand new one. You'll have an update coming sometime this morning. Watch for the email from Brian that we're adding a prepaid expense report in here. I'm actually using a test version of it. So where you will see that report is if you go to the reports area, go to accounting, go to accrual, When that update gets out later this morning, you can go to prepaid expense report, and that's going to show all your balances on the prepaid. So this is kind of a nice one. We never had this report before. One of the nice things about it is if your prepaid account, if this balance doesn't seem right, you can click on it, you can drill in, and this will show you all the entries that make it up. So that's kind of where those prepaid values are coming from. These next ones, so the growing wheat, what you're going to see in the growing crops are any crops that Traction sees where it's 2026 crops, they haven't been harvested yet, and the costs that I've been putting into those. So the obvious is winter wheat. That's going to be the cost of the seed, anything else that I've done to that. If maybe you did some fall fertilizer for next year's crop, you could have next year's crop showing up there. So where this comes from, that 30,000 number is what Traction has come up with the cost for that wheat. So where you see that value is a Field Profit Center report. So Field Profit Center report, if I go in and say, okay, let's look at our 2026 wheat fields, I'm just going to select them all. I'm going to see what I've done. I've got seed there. It looks like I've got some planter, tractor cost. Our total cost that we've put into that is $30,343.32. That's where that cost is coming from. So kind of gives you an idea. And again, that this will be all the cost. My example is pretty simple, but this would be any seed, chemical, fertilizer, equipment cost, rent cost, any costs that you've allocated to it. So, and this value, until you put a market value in on it, the accrual balance sheet at least is always going to change as you do more cost to it. So your harvested corn and soybeans on this, I kind of skipped over, but this report gives you a supporting schedule down below that breaks everything out. So there's the breakdown of accounts receivable, prepays, growing crops. So like the harvested corn got 111,111.11 bushels there, and it's 90 cents a bushel. So I'll first show where that 90 cents a bushel is. So the 90 cents a bushel, that's my cost per bushel as Traction has it to raise it. And apologies, my numbers aren't realistic. I've just got some sample data in here, but where that 90 cents comes from, if I go back to this Field Profit Center report and switch this back to my 2025, not wheat, but corn, if I look at my report, my total expenses, and you'll see again, I don't have much in here, but I've got my seed, my equipment, I do have some property tax expense. We've got 111,000 total cost divided by 123,000 bushels. Our average cost per bushel on it is 90 cents a bushel, and that's kind of the cost we use on it. So again, this is just a starting point for the market value. I'll show you how to update it, but if I was doing an accrual balance sheet, that's what would show up there. And then that 111,111, that's all going to be coming from the storage area. So if I went to like my resources and looked at my storage, that's just adding up the bushels that I've still got that are unsold. And then probably the last value in here, not quite last, but the input side of it, all these inputs that we're seeing in here, where I can see quantities on all of these, where I see those is just going to be in the resources, the inputs area. So any of these I should see, like Mustang Max, I should see 125 at $150. So I go to chemicals, right there is where that's coming from. And then probably the last one, the accounts payable side of it, well, that's all coming from the bills area. So if I go to bills, those are all the vendors that I have bills that are unpaid. That's where the 166,500 comes from. So again, this is just kind of showing you where those numbers come from. So to actually go in and update and put market values in here, all I have to do is just look at this report, and down below I've got an edit button. So edit's where I can go in and enter what things are worth today. So edit's got everything grouped in here. It's got my total book value, the total market value in here. So my growing crops right there is where I can see I've got 450 acres of wheat. My cost is $67.40 in it. This side of it, a couple things on this. If maybe you don't have your field records quite right in traction, if you know that 450 number is wrong, you can make changes in here. So the thing to say, if I change something here, if I know it's really 500 acres, that's only going to change at market value. It's not going to affect kind of the crops that are on individual fields. But if you're in a hurry just to get a market value balance sheet done, you can just override and change those. Same with the market side of it. If I know the cost on it's 60, and if I know really my cost should be closer to maybe 70 an acre, I could put 70 in there. Harvested crops, there's all my bushels. Same thing here. If maybe I haven't been the best at doing my harvest records and I know I've got these numbers are wrong, you can go in and change these. So if I know I've really got 100,000 of corn, I can change those. I think the only thing to say on that, again, this isn't going to fix my inventory. This is just going to update it on the market value balance sheet. So that's just put in there. If you're in a real hurry to get the market value balance sheet to your banker, you can adjust it. But probably at some point, you really want to fix traction, get it right. So here's where I could say then if corn is, I don't know, 450 a bushel today, and I don't know if beans is 650 today, I can update those, and now it's updating my market value. And up above, it's just going to show me a summary here comparing my market value. My total crops is going up, that I can see those values there. Next area is supplies, same type thing. We got the quantities. If my inventories are off, I could fix them here for the balance sheet. The market value is going to default to your average cost on it. If you need to change anything here, you can. I know a lot of people will just leave it at average cost because that's probably about as good as anything there to use. The land area, the first time that you do a market value balance sheet, you're going to need to add your farms in here. So I can go to add detail, pick the account that I'm going to. I'm putting it to my land account. This area is going to list all the farms that I've set up in Traction. So if I want to track these by farm, if the home farm, I pick it out, it's got my 300 acres on that. If that's worth 15,000 an acre, I can put that in. And if that McCool farm is also owned, I can put that in, put the value on that. And you can, what it's going to do is the land area is going to list the farms if you've set them up in Traction. If for some reason you don't want, for the market value balance sheet, you want to show them differently, you can go in, you can actually add your own lines in here. So if I add a line in here, maybe I've got another farm, the start farm, I don't have it set up in Traction. I can set that up in there now. So if I don't have it set up in Traction, it won't know the acres, but I could put in whatever the acres are and put in the value on that. So this is going to build everything out. The first time through, I've got to get these different farms added in here. For future market value balance sheets, it's going to default and put them in there. And again, it's accumulating my market value balance sheet up above. Building and structures, kind of the same way. What this is going to start out with are any of the storage locations that I've set up that I told Traction they're ones that I own. So if I flip back to my tab here and go to storage, when you set up your storage locations, there's an area in here where you could tell it whether you own it or not. And if you told it you owned it, then you would tell it what account it goes to, when you bought it, your costs, things like that. So any of the storage locations you own, we're going to put in here. We're going to show you the purchase cost kind of as a reference point. And then you can go in and say whatever they're worth today. So I'll just put some values in here. And once again, Traction's only going to have in here storage locations is all we know about. So you're probably going to have other storage locations or other buildings and structures you want to show in your market value balance sheet. So the first time through, you're going to want to add those in. So if I've got, say, we'll say I've got a barn. I can add that in there, put in whatever my purchase cost was, if I know it just roughly, and that's not important. I don't have to do that, but go in and say whatever that's worth today. So you just keep adding details, fill all that information in. Again, your first market value balance sheet will take longer because you have to add all this stuff, but the future you don't have to. And then the last one in here, the equipment. This is going to show all the equipment that I've added to Traction. Same thing on this. When you add equipment in this resources equipment area, if I go in and just view details, when you added it, you had the option to say whether you owned it or not. If you say yes to own it, that's going to say and put it on here. So I can go in and say whatever each of these is worth. Once again, if there's equipment that I haven't set up in Traction, so I didn't want to keep records on it, but I want to show it on the market value balance sheet, I can just go in and add in here. So maybe I've got a grain truck. And if it's worth 10,000, just put that in there. The other assets, this will list out any other assets that you've set up in Traction. So kind of the examples you'll see in here a lot of times, if you've got like a brokerage account for hedging, patronage stock, maybe investment in another business, those will show up in this area. And again, I could go in and put whatever that's worth. This other assets that aren't in entities, where I see this used is if maybe your banker wants you to have your personal house on here, you're not going to have it actually on the books in Traction, but he wants to see it on the balance sheet. You can add those in here. So if I add in, let's say it's a long-term asset and just call it personal house, I can put that in there. The liability side, there's not a lot to put in here. If you had any other liabilities that you set up in there, those would show up here. I don't really have any good examples on that side of it, but if you had something in there, you can. Generally, like your loans and things like that, we're just going to pull the balance that's in Traction. So the other liabilities not an entity, this would be the other side of it. If I put my personal house in here, but I've got a personal loan that's not in Traction, I would just do add detail. Say it's a long term and put in. So when all's said and done, I'm just going to go ahead and save everything as it is. And what we'll see now, everything in our market value balance sheet has been updated for that. So kind of the place I'll notice those changes, if I scroll down below, you'll start seeing right there's the obvious ways I start seeing it. I can see the market value I put on the corn, the beans. And what I'll see now is that like my land is going to list out all my farms in there with the totals on it. I've got all my structures, all my equipment, everything's in there. So market value balance sheet's really designed so that when you print it out, it gives you everything you need. So if you're giving it to a banker, this is going to give you everything that you need to give the banker, not just the balance sheet, but the information, the details behind it. So balance sheet can be printed. We've also got an export that'll export as a CSV. I know a lot of bankers want to take your market value balance sheets and they'll run them through their spreadsheets or analysis. So if you want to do them a favor, that CSV make it a little bit easier that they can get the numbers out of it. So probably the last thing I want to cover is just talk a little bit about this balance sheet, that net worth value. Basically, when you look at this balance sheet, that net worth is saying what you would wind up with if you sold everything for what you said it's worth and then paid off all the accounts payable, all the credit card, all the debts that are in here, this is what you'd be left over with. Now, Traction's added one last feature that allows you to kind of tweak this a little bit more. So if that number's real big, we all know, unfortunately, we're going to have to pay some taxes on it. And Traction's added in here, if I go to edit, we've added this deferred taxes option. So what deferred taxes is going to do is take everything at its market value versus what the cost is. And cost on this is going to be cost as it is on your cash books. And it's going to figure a gain or loss on those. So if I look at that, I can go in. What I need to tell it is what's my short-term tax rate and what's my long-term tax rate. Basically, I shut down the farm and I sold it. Anything like my grains, any of my inputs that I sold, those are all going to be taxed at a higher short-term rate. That rate may be something like 33%. All my land equipment that are long-term is probably going to get a lower tax rate. So my long-term rate I can say is 15%. You'll see I had a big gain in there, but you'll see what it's going to do now is figure out how much I owe in taxes. And when you run this, what the balance sheet is then going to show is you'll look up here in the liabilities. It's added a liability just like your loans for what you'd owe in taxes, broke out between current and long-term. What that's showing then is, okay, so my numbers are good. This is going to be exactly what I'd walk away with if I sold the farm, paid off my debt, paid off my taxes. That's going to be the net cash that came out of it. So it gives you a way to start running some different things in there. So again, those deferred taxes, I don't know, a lot of times it may not be something you want to give to your banker. It's really easy. You can just go in and delete it, and you can run it back and forth with it. So if I want to print one without it for the banker, I can just change it, save it, and that lets me do it that way and play what ifs. Again, if this was my banker and if later on I wanted to do a new one that's a best case scenario, all I got to do is make a new one, call it best case, copy from, and that gives me one where I can go and just edit it and put in my best case values on it. So I've rambled for long enough. I think probably I'll open up and see, are there any questions out there?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything through chat yet, Scott. So pretty quiet so far. So feel free to unmute yourself if you do have any questions. Scott, you did mention something about an update going out this morning.
Yep.
As you were talking, I saw the update being released. So if you are already in Traction before the webinar started, you might have to refresh or maybe log out, log back in to see the new feature that we just released on the prepay side of things. But yeah, it's kind of ironic that you said that, Scott. Yeah, it looks like somebody's having an issue with their mic. So yeah, Mike Bell, if you just want to type your question in the chat, we'll answer that for you. And yeah, appreciate it, Tom. Yeah, we like doing these webinars. So I'll just go ahead and ramble a few things here. And so if you do have some more questions, we're not shutting it down right now, but I do want to just a shout out with the future webinars that we're doing. We do have another one here after Christmas, budgeted cash flows. I think we'll have Scott on that one as well. And then after the new year, we've got a couple of 1099 webinars. We got Taryn stepping in to help cover that. So as you guys get ready for your 1099s, I think those would be some good ones to attend to just kind of get refreshed on how we do things in Traction. All these webinars, and also there's just a host of in-person events that we'll be at. You can check those out on our website. If you go down to the footer area of our website, there's a upcoming events button that you can click on. You'll see all these webinars and in-person events for you to look at, and hope to see you there. So, do you have a question from an attendee? How many market value balance sheets should you keep saved?
There's really no, this is always going to sort them, I think, based off the description. So as long as you're using that date in the description, the list will just get longer. So I mean, my thought is if it's just something that you're playing around, I'd probably delete it, but it's up to you really how detailed you want to get. I mean, if you need to, if you're worried, you want to clean the list up and delete some of them, what I would tend to do is just do a print, save it as a PDF. That print gives you the option to save as PDF. And you can save that PDF and throw it on a Google Drive or something like that just for reference. But Traction, there's really no limit to how many you need here.
Yeah, not seeing any other questions. So Scott, great
I got a
job.
question,
Yeah.
Brian.
Oh, yep, go for it.
Will you guys have any on the grain contracts? Will we be able to tie any of that into our storage locations and our bins and that kind of stuff?
Certainly we're looking at for the future, Mike. As of today, I can't give you a definite kind of time frame for it, but it's something that we're looking at.
And that's not really related to what we were talking to, but I was curious if we could have being able to track all of our contracts and stuff all in one place would be nice.
No, and we do hear that request a lot. It's definitely on our roadmap. I just right now can't say for sure when it's going to be.
Thank you.
We do have a way, yeah, we do have a way of tracking that, Mike, in our system just to track who all would be interested in that feature. So I'll make sure to tag you, you know, in that feature request. And for any of you who are still on, who are listening, if any of you are also interested, you can throw that up on the comments, the chat area, or if you want to let me know, we'll definitely make sure we get you added. Good question. Anything else? Any other questions even beyond market value balance sheet? All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and, yep, got you, Amanda. We'll get you added. We will go ahead and just shut this down and we'll share the recording. And appreciate you all taking the time to be with us. And yeah, I'm just going to keep this open for a little bit longer. All of you are starting to respond to my request there. So yeah, Amy, we'll get you added too. Appreciate that, everyone. And yeah, thanks, Scott, for doing this.
Thanks.
Take care, everyone.